one step at a time. Don't focus on a race or a distance that's well off into the future, right? You literally just started. So I'm gonna walk with you until you're ready to run. And then I will run with you at whatever pace until you get faster. And then we'll run at that pace until you get faster. And then we keep moving on from there. But just one step at a time, focus on the here and now. Tomorrow will always show up.
Right into it. So, and make sure everything is here set. Perfect. 3, 2. Welcome to the Safe Space Running Podcast, where we're here to encourage, enable, and empower. I am truly happy to have today's guest today, Jason Bahamundi. I'm sure I just butchered that again, as I butcher all the other words as part of that statement. But Jason, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Chris, and you did not butcher it at all. You hit it on the head. For those of you who are reading my name on the screen, it's very phonetic. Pronounce the letters and you got it.
Well, I'm glad, because normally, and those who's listening, they know that I trip up on words all the time. I try my best not to, but I mean, it is what it is. We're human. It all happens. But yeah, so before we get into our, the grid of the conversation, I wanted to ask, what do you have set on your run schedule, or even just your fitness schedule? Because I know you do a lot of things based on my research, but what is next on your fitness cycle right now?
We're actually going to be doing a 12K night race here on the weekend. I don't know when you're publishing this, but it's July 8th, and we're going to do a 12K race this weekend in lead up to the San Francisco Marathon, which is on July 26th.
I was training for San Francisco, and I had to change plans I am bummed out now that I know that you're doing it. That would have been so awesome to connect and suffer in the marathon space alongside someone is the way I like to phrase it. Now, let's talk about this 12-hour race you've got coming up. What is that about? 12K. I'm sorry. Yes.
Yeah. It's a night race here in Phoenix that is part of a series that the Aravaipa running company puts on. And as you can imagine, like trying to run at any distance during the day in Phoenix is going to be miserable. And so they put it on at night, which gives you a little bit of reprieve. So you go from 104 degrees to like 88, 89. It's still going to be hot.
Ooh, that sounds like, well, I don't do terrible in the heat, but then again, I'd rather not run in the heat if I had to choose as well. So I get that. Totally get that. So I wanted to, again, I'm so glad you're here today. So those who are listening and watching, Jason is the founder of RunTri Mag. It's a media company that goes around and there's so many aspects of it that they do. They have a podcast, they have articles, they have a membership that they have for a collection for participants, whether you're running, whether you're, doing biking, your triathlon, swimming, all that good jazz. There's such a gamut of information and depth of knowledge that he have. So if you're listening again, watching him, check out the website, check out his Instagram. It's a ton of information, but I happened to come across your page, early on into this journey and such. So my first question to you was, why start this? Why RunTri Mag?
That's a great question, and one that I love answering, Chris. And the reality is, it was late 2020, pandemic had hit, right? We're all trying to figure out what tomorrow is going to bring. And at the time, I worked for a company called Travel Host, and with the word travel in your name during a pandemic, it's never good. And so I was very fortunate that my mentor kept me on board. It was him, myself, and another person that were running this company. And he got a phone call one day that said, "Hey, you might want to take this." And there was a magazine in Texas, I lived in Dallas at the time, that was selling their print business. And I talked to the owner a couple of times. And after I got off the phone call the second time, I looked at Bill, my mentor, and I said, "I don't need to buy that company. I can build it on my own." And the way it got started, Chris, was I wanted to tell stories of everyday athletes as opposed to the stories of the people winning the New York City Marathon and the Chicago Marathon, right? Though that exposure that I would have brought isn't necessary. They're already getting coverage, right? And tons of it. And so I wanted to tell the stories of the people that I was training with and surrounded by. Because when I looked around, right, I saw tall people, I saw short people, I saw people that were in bigger bodies. I saw people that were in smaller bodies, like it's just all kinds of people. Like when you walk down I'm from New York. So when you walk down the street in New York City, you see people and they're from all different shapes, sizes, and backgrounds. And I know that that's what endurance sports can be, but the media only kept showing us 6'2" white males that were running 2.5-hour marathons and finishing Ironman races in 7.5, 8 hours. I'm a 5'6" Puerto Rican kid from the Bronx. Like, you're not getting any further away from the 6'2" white guy than that. And, you know, to the best of my ability, I was finishing Ironman races in 12 hours, which is a far cry from 7.5, right? And so I wanted to tell those stories because after, and you know this, and anybody listening to this knows this, after a workout or a training day, you're hanging around the breakfast table with your buddies and you're telling stories. And I'm like, why isn't this out in the public? Like, why are we all doing this in this small confined space? And so I launched the business. And for the last 6 years, we've been telling stories of athletes from all different backgrounds because I wanted to focus on BIPOC athletes. I wanted to focus on queer athletes. I wanted to focus on disabled athletes because I had those athletes in my life, whether they were family or friends, and they weren't getting their stories being told. And I just find them to be absolutely amazing, the obstacles that we overcome to get to our goals. And I just wanted to share that more and more and more. And so we've gone through iterations, Chris, from starting with an actual print magazine all the way through to today that you see where it's all digital with podcasts and videos and all of that kind of stuff. But the nexus of it all has been the same, which is to tell the story of the everyday athlete, to prove that there is a spot at the starting line for everybody and every body.
I love that. And I think that's why I really gravitated towards your medium. And it's kind of where again, Safe Space often tries to, you know, to take, that's a good way to put it, take influence from, you know, brands and programming like yours that really highlight the importance of the everyday story. Not all of us is going to run a sub 2:30 marathon. I'm surely not ever, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's not my wheelhouse. A lot of us come in contact with friends and families and strangers that are the bulk of the field. One thing I noticed when I was doing some research on like Chicago Marathon, when I finished it in 2024, was that I finished it around 3:48. It was my first marathon that I've done. And out of about 54,000 participants, I was around 17,000 place-wise. And it clicked for me like the bulk of the field is slower. The bulk of the field is 4 hours, 4 hours and a half, 5 hours. That's the bulk of the running community there. And that's where the heart and spirit of the community and the stories are to be told. So in that same spirit, my next question would be around, you know, since I love the everyday man story, everyday woman story, doesn't matter what the common man story is, like the kind of way I look at it in that case. What has been the biggest benefit in sharing those stories versus sharing, you know, the high profile ones? Like what do you usually get from feedback for those you interview, or, you know, what is your perspective of that?
Simply put, if they can do it, so can I. Right? Like, because they are dealing with family, they are dealing with friends, they are dealing with jobs, they are dealing with stresses, they are dealing with all of the things that I'm dealing with and trying to squeeze a schedule in. That's not to say that the person who is winning Chicago, or like Rachel Entricken just won Cocodona 250, it's not to say that she doesn't have those same things. But here's the difference. Rachel is, I put up a post. She ran Cocodona in 56 hours. I did Cocodona in 110 hours, right? It took me twice as long to do it as it did her. And so if we take that out onto the road, if she's running a 6-minute mile and I'm running a 9-minute mile, everything I do is going to take 50% longer, which means I have less time to deal with the other stuff in my life, where she has more time, right? And so again, it's not to say that she doesn't deal with stresses and bills and invoices and all of that stuff, but our lives are different. Our lives are just different. And so I relate to the everyday athlete more. And so when I'm talking to them and they're telling me their story of alcohol abuse or drug abuse, because I've had alcohol abuse in my life, when they're telling me their story about disordered eating or an eating disorder, I can relate to that because I've gone through that in my life as well. When they are telling me a story of being Black and running the streets of Chicago, when they're telling me a story about being Latino and running in the streets of Minneapolis, when they're Asian and they're telling me the story about running. Like I can relate to that because that's me in a much tighter knit community than it would be with like Rachel at Cocodona or Jan Frodeno at Ironman. Like their stories are inspiring. We all aspire to do better and be faster and all of that stuff. But the story I get from Chris is far more relatable. And there's a very good chance that I'm going to have a meal with Chris than I am with Rachel or Jan or some other elite athlete, right? Mm-hmm. And so then when we're having that meal, you and I are now sharing stories. And you and I are becoming closer and bonded together. And then I'm going to be like, Chris, you know who you should interview for your Safe Space Running podcast? ... Because I've connected with those people. And so that's what I get out of it. I get this sense of community. I get this sense of closeness. I also get a sense of accountability because if these people are going through whatever it is they're going through in their life at that moment, then whatever I'm going through, I can get over as well. And so, okay, let me put my running shoes on and get out there. Let me get my swim goggles on and get in the water. Like I can do those things because I see those other people doing it too.
I love that answer. It's as if they can do it, I can do it. I love that perspective because a lot of times I've always been one, and this is from both like a musician standpoint, because I play guitar, and from a runner standpoint, I couldn't tell you, and this is no disrespect to them, I could only tell you maybe 5 to 10 famous runners that are super fast.
Right.
I don't come in contact with them. It's nothing like I'm not knocking their hustle. I know that there is, to get to an elite status, you have to put in elite work. That's just bottom line. I totally respect that. I understand it. I inspire by it. 9 times out of 10, I'm by my neighbors. I'm by my community. I'm by the ones who are in the same space that I am. And as you said, those are the ones I relate more to. Those are the ones I can conversate. They're tangible, you know, in the sense of I could reach out to them by phone or we can do a run together. And I love that you've put that emphasis into your podcast that I admire because it helps level the playing field of highlighting the different stories and puts them literally on the same level. The elite stories are just as important as Mary down the street. We just interviewed Mary not too long ago, 74 years old. She may never be on the cover of Runner's World, but she just finished Boston. You know what I'm saying? That's she just awesome. Finished Boston like 4 hours and some change at 74, which those for me is always the high stories that I love to touch base on. And then even with her, and I'll speak, you know, candidly in that case, I think for me, the benefit that I get from highlighting these everyday stories is the gratitude. Because there's a lot of people that don't share their stories, whether they want to or don't have a platform to. But with where you're at in your space, there are stories that people get an opportunity to share themselves. They get an opportunity to, you know, put themselves in a position where their story matters. And I think that has a huge role in this running space to make sure that everyone's story, no matter big or how small, gets the same recognition and the same excitement, the same sense of, you know, of great feeling behind it too. That's what I've really admired about being in this space. I'm sure you've came across experiences like that as well. 100%. The gratitude is like 10-day difference.
You just touched on something. So not everybody wants to be public facing, right? And
yes.
I get that. So we built the Everyday Athlete Clubhouse, which is a private community. And within that private community, I extend an invitation to every member to join me on what's called a Party of 5 podcast that is only seen by our Clubhouse members. And the whole goal of it is to get the personality out. Like we don't talk about paces or distances. The premise of the show is you get to invite 4 people, alive or dead, to a dinner party. And we have Netflix money, so you can put it in any part of the country. You can, or any part of the world, excuse me. Who's the chef that's cooking the meal? What drinks are we serving the guests? And the guests have to come from different places. Music, the screen, an everyday athlete. So somebody you'd want to hang out with that is a friend of yours, or maybe you've seen them out there and you're like, that person would be cool. And I think they'd be a great dinner party guest. And then a wild card. So they could be an author or whomever you want. And it just brings out personality and it makes people comfortable because it's behind the scenes. The only people that are going to see it are going to be the people that are in the Everyday Athlete Clubhouse. And then I want to touch on another thing you said, which is Mary down the street. So the whole concept for our platform is I can see myself in that person's shoes. And when we see that person in their shoes, we see ourselves in their shoes, and we think that we can do it. I will tell you this story. I interviewed Robert Rodriguez, who is a disabled athlete. He's raced for Team USA in triathlon. He's played for Team USA in volleyball.
Wow.
I think he's played for Team USA in basketball as well. But I interviewed him, and I asked everybody, like, who is, and then their name. And he said that he is a Puerto Rican kid from the Bronx, and I didn't know this. And so the moment he said that, if you ever watch the interview, it's on YouTube, you will see my face light up, because it was like, holy moly, there is somebody who's just like me, because I'm a Puerto Rican kid from the Bronx, right? Like that connection, it's unbreakable in that moment, right? Like everything in that interview changed, because now we were just two Boricuas from the Bronx having conversations.
Yes.
Right? Like everything just changed. And I think that's what's so cool about talking to the everyday athlete, like the way that you do as well.
I love that. It's such and I'm glad you touched on that point, because I wanted to also touch about, why the importance for you to highlight BIPOC, trans disabled athletes, the whole scheme of athletes on that field, because when it's all said and done, we're all out there together. But I think that I always harp on it every time I get the chance to, because it's passionate to me. Representation matters. It matters when we see ourselves out on that course. It matters when we see ourselves, having discussions or being on the panels, whatever may be the case. People like Rising Hearts is a good example. I love what Jordan's done out there.
Jordan is amazing.
Isn't she? And that's that whole thing of just continuing to put that into the forefront. So my next question to you is, why is that important for you?
So I will tell you a story about Jordan. So I sponsored an athlete, Mariah Zavala, who ran the Every Women's Marathon in November, actually here in Phoenix. And I told Jordan, I said, I could give you money. Like, that's the easy part, but I don't want to just give you money. I want to get to know the athletes. I want to get to be a part of this community that you are building, because it's important for me to hear the story so I can relate. And so Jordan invited us to the Rising Hearts house the day before the race, and my wife, Dr. Lori, and I went to the house, and we got to meet all of the athletes that were there to run the Every Women's Marathon. And then they start telling stories. They start telling stories about the indigenous women that are going missing and are being murdered. And it just grabs you, Chris. Like it makes you understand. For me, it made me understand the privilege that I have. I've said it multiple times. I have a hat that says Puerto Rico on it. I'm Puerto Rican, but by presentation, if I'm walking down the street, you would think I'm a Caucasian male, right? And that comes with privilege. And so I want to use that privilege to highlight the voices of the marginalized groups, right? And so by being able to use my privilege to showcase the marginalized groups, I also learn about myself. I also learn what it's like to be Puerto Rican in these streets, shall we say, because you hear the things that are not positive. And I'm using that word lightly, because it gets a lot more troublesome than positive, right? And so by me telling those stories and showcasing it, there's going to be a younger person who sees it and says, well, if that dude who's Puerto Rican and from the Bronx is running marathons and competing at Ironmans and running Cocodona, then I can too. And that's a big part of why I do this. Because I will also tell you this, my own family, right? They were like, what are you doing? We don't do that stuff.
Yes, we don't run. Yes. Oh my God.
I was like, what do you mean we don't do this stuff? I'm literally doing it. And not only am I doing it, I've got a business that I've been running for 6 years talking about doing it. And it's just, I know, look, and I know in this space, you feel this too, right? You put stuff out and it's crickets coming back oftentimes. You're like, man, I hope something is resonating. And then when you get that person that says, because of you, I did this. Because of your interview with Chris, I did this, right? And you're like, this is why I keep doing it. I'm going to keep showing up and keep doing it. I had one trans athlete come to me when they came on the screen to be interviewed. And they told me, I'm only here because you have a pride flag on your website. It made me feel that this was a safe and supportive space. And I'm here to tell you that story. And knowing that, and that there are other people out there that are going to see that and be like, look, he's standing up for something that he believes in. I can talk to him and I can be honest with him. And I think that matters.
It does. It does. I think you said crickets and that hit so home because I have to, anyone who's done any kind of podcasting or videos or whatever, whether it be on YouTube, Spotify, maybe the case, you always have to ask yourself. And I asked this question, I learned it from one of my artist mentors here, Scott Woods. What is your measure of success? And that always is what keeps me grounded in the terms of, why am I in this? Why am I talking to these people? Why am I doing these videos? And you said it best. It's really just a matter of that one person that comes back and says, I appreciate you. Now I can do this. Now I can believe in myself. Or even people who get interviewed, like, hey, thank you for just taking the time to hear me, to let me be seen. Most importantly, that right there makes it worth every single time. So I'm glad you said that. And for those who are looking to start podcasts, your measures of success may be different, but I completely agree with you in terms of why we are in this.
I'm going to add something to the start of that
please
answer
do.
too. So I saw an interview, and I believe it was Rick Ross, and they asked him, like, why do you do this? What is it, right? And his answer to the question just blew my mind. He said, if I'm not enjoying it, I'm not doing it. He said, my measure of success is, did I enjoy doing it? Not, it's going to be hard. I get it. Like, yes, we do hard things, but did I enjoy doing the hard? And so I know, like, when I'm putting together a podcast and then creating an Instagram carousel out of it and a YouTube short and putting it on spot, like all of the things that it takes to put together a podcast, right? Am I enjoying doing it? And if I don't enjoy doing it, I need to press the pause button for a moment and tell my upcoming guests, look, we're going to have to kick it down a day or two because I need to bring back that energy and bring back that love for what I am doing. Otherwise, what's the point? I can use those 4, 5, 6, 8 hours a week on something else that's more enjoyable.
I totally agree with that. And that's what's beautiful about, and this is where I get into, I always take time to make sure we give people flowers. Again, those who listen, they know what's going up and they know what's up. But I like through this conversation that the one word that kept sticking out to me in terms of, your character was relationship. And I think that's so important for us in this community to relate to one another, to relate to our to the person next to us, and at the very least, understand their struggles, understand what they go through. And you have always had a heart to tell these stories about people. And it's not just a matter of letting them share them, but how can I relate to that story? How can I be more, have that human connection with you a lot closer than just me listening passively to what your story is, and how you present yourself and how you've ran your business, how you've made safe spaces for others to come in and tell their stories, whether it be their person facing or they want to have it in their, their meeting at Netflix in the Bahamas with, their famous artists. You've made a space for them to just express, but then how can you relate to that? So I want to make sure that I thank you for your contributions to this space, your contributions to the people that you've impacted. And I am grateful that we've crossed paths. I'm grateful that I was able to come across and even take inspiration from what you do. And I always truly believe that there's always enough space for us to eat, and there's reach that all of us have, and that the reach that you have to your audience, to your members, to the people you've coached. And again, for those, check out the website because there's coaching tips on there. There's so much information there that you could have kept to yourself or not even walked into this path or this purpose for you, but you've done that. So I want to make sure that I thank you for your contributions, and I truly appreciate the person that you are.
I feel like Rod Tidwell. And you're not going to make me cry, Chris. You're not going to make me cry.
I'm trying my best not to. I almost got Jack from Peace Springs. I almost got him, but no, all of it's genuine though, for sure.
And I appreciate it. Yeah. One of the things I love saying is you can show up to my house, and if it doesn't look like I have enough seats, trust me, I'm just going to build a bigger table because you're welcome. And I don't know when we got into this world of this is my tight knit circle and it's 2 people and I don't want anybody else in there. I don't know when that happened, and I don't like it. And I want people to come. I want people to come hang out. Again, I grew up, in the Bronx, Northern Manhattan, in a Hispanic family. And every Friday, my parents had people over, right? And they would play salsa and merengue, and they would move the furniture to the corners of the room, and they would dance, and they would enjoy life.
Wow.
And that was the example that was set for me. And so like, I want to push the couches and the chairs to the corners of the room so that we have a dance floor and people could come hang out. Like that to me is everything.
I love that. I love that. And that's what's been so beautiful about being involved in the run community, and even running and swimming and even the triathletes, things like that. Just this whole space of fitness, at least in this and where my exposure's been at. I've been running for 20 plus years, but the one thing I always have known is we're gonna hype somebody up. At the end of the day, somebody's getting hyped up, somebody's getting congratulated and celebrated, and that's what's so beautiful about this. And I appreciate the platform that you created to do that in multiple medias, in multiple forms. So yeah, I love it.
Thank you. I appreciate you. And I'm publicly saying this, and I would say it to you in private as well. Whatever you need me to do to help you out, hit me up.
I appreciate that. Well, I do have one thing I need you to help me out with, but it's less about me. It's my favorite question of all time. Let's say you have a new runner or new walker who's entering into the space. What is one thing you would suggest to them as they start their journey?
One step at a time. Don't focus on a race or a distance that's well off into the future, right? You literally just started. So I'm going to walk with you until you're ready to run. And then I will run with you at whatever pace until you get faster. And then we'll run at that pace until you get faster. And then we keep moving on from there. But just one step at a time, focus on the here and now. Tomorrow will always show up. So Chris, one of the things that you said that I think is important for new, especially when you're asking the question about new runners and the first thing they should do, you said that you've been running for 20 years and your first marathon was in 2024.
That's correct.
I think that is a story that needs to be told, because you either weren't prepared or you weren't interested or whatever it was. The marathon wasn't the ultimate goal until it became a goal. So like, what was going through your preparation in running that finally, after give or take 18 years, you were like, okay, I'm going to do the marathon now?
Real talk, I just didn't want to do it.
There you go. Right.
That was it. So it was like, because I enjoyed the half marathon is my sweet spot. I did high school track. I did the mile and the 800, which I had turnover to run fast. But for years, I just like the half marathon felt like the really good distance. And I made the mistake of, I didn't know. And again, you don't know what you don't know. I never knew there was a 5K. I never knew there was a quarter or a 10K, because in high school, we didn't have cross country. It was only the mile and the 800 and the 2 mile when they wanted to torture me. That's all I had. So when I got into college, and again, I went to DeVry. DeVry didn't have sports. So I wasn't exposed to any of this until one day I saw an advertisement, hey, there's a half marathon. I'm like, oh, 13 miles? I ran in school, no big deal. I didn't train for that, and I definitely felt it towards the end. But to that point is like, I wish I would have taken a step back. I mean, everything happens for a reason. I have no regrets. But if I was to go back and redo it, I would have found a 5K to do. I would have found just something to see how that feels, or trained, or at least found a plan to go through. And once, I'm glad I didn't do the marathon sooner, because I wouldn't have given it the respect that it needed. I would have just gone out with that same energy like I did the half marathon. Like, oh, everyone's telling me to do half. And I'm telling you, every time I was at a run club, Chris, you doing a marathon? I'm like, no, I'm not, because I wouldn't have trained like I should have for it. I know myself too well. I'd have went out and just did it because everyone kept telling me to do it. But when I decided to do it in 2024, my training for half marathons was like a hybrid between marathon training and half training. So I'm doing 13, 15 miles, on a scheduled basis, so to speak. So I was at a really good place of fitness. I'm like, now's the time where I can make time to train for it and do it the best I can, whatever that looks like, whether it be just getting across the line, whether it's shooting for a sub-3. That's what I was shooting for at first till I got injured. But then even then, just it running changes. But that's why it took me so long, because first I didn't know, but the second thing was I knew well enough that if I really didn't want to do it, as you said with the Rick Ross quote, I have to enjoy it. I knew I wouldn't have enjoyed a marathon at that time. So that's where that came to.
I think that's important for your listeners and for the people that are on our platform too, right? Not everything is for everybody. I know social media promises you that being a marathoner is the world, right? But for some people, if you want to run a 5K, great. For others, if you want to run half marathons, great. For others, if you like myself, I would much rather run 100 miles. Okay, that's just a preference, and it doesn't make you any less of a runner. And so, like, don't rush into the things that aren't going to fill up your cup, shall we speak? And I think that's why I wanted to ask you that question, because you kind of glossed over in this idea. Like, I ran my first marathon in 2024, and I've been running for 20 years, where a lot of people would be like, why didn't you run a marathon sooner? And I think it's an important story to tell, because there will be somebody who hears this episode and will say, well, shoot, Chris didn't run a marathon for 18 years. I don't ever have to run one, and I don't want to run one, and that's okay.
That is okay. I feel like we're in a space right now, and again, we're going to go right all into this tangent. I feel like right now, I love that there's another running boom currently going on. I love that more people have access to running. The thing that always scares me, the thing that concerns me the most, is what I like to call ego running. To where you have to do tough things just for the sake of doing tough things. And I get it. If you want to test your limits, that's fine. But at the very least, give it the respect it needs and train like you should for it. I have people who come up all the time, and their why doesn't matter what, but it's like, you want to do this, you have this goal, but you're not giving it that time. And that's where I see people get injured, they get burned out, and they start a terrible relationship with the distance, whether it be the 5K or the marathon. They go out and jump straight to the marathon, and I'm like, oh, I hated it. Well, start easy. See, if you should have seen if you liked it in the first place. And that's okay to figure it out. But I'm a lot more cautious to that. I'd rather you take your time into the sport, give it that respect, but first enjoy it. Make sure you really enjoy this, because we've been in this. Like I said, you've trained for 100 milers, and I'm not doing an ultra, no, but it's like, it takes a lot of time. There's a sacrifice you got to give up to do this stuff. And that's where you got to really gauge to see if that's the time commitment you want. And if you don't, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that.
One of the things that people I shouldn't say always, but people I see often is, I want to run into my 70s and 80s. And yet they're running every single run hard on every single day. And I'm like, you ain't never going to make it to your 70s and 80s running, because you're going to end up in the hospital with what you're doing. Like, it's okay to press the pause button, take a rest day, go swim, go bike, go walk, for crying out loud. That's all acceptable. That's all part of training too. Like, all of this stuff counts.
It does. It definitely does. I love that. I love asking that question, because everyone's perspective is so genuine. You can always tell good advice because there's consistencies across them, but that's one step at a time. Can't go wrong with that. I have to go back and tell my athletes the same thing. So
I feel you.
Well, again, for those listening or watching, we'll have links into the bio description. Please check out Jason. And again, he's doing such great work. Jason, I can't thank you enough. We'll continue to be in touch, but hopefully we'll find a race course to share. I'm sure we will sooner or later, but for the 15th time, I'm sure. Thank you so much for what you do.
I appreciate you. Thanks, Chris.